Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's October 26th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can still see we've got some cloud activity here across Montana and Idaho, some continuing precipitation here. We'll be wrapping up by this afternoon, but through tonight we could get some residual bands across central Idaho as well as some showers across some of Washington and British Columbia with this cloud activity here. Should not be major storm total impacts here with some of that snow that's flying across some of the higher terrain, mainly just kind of an additional coating of snow. And we're going to remain cold as we go on in through the weekend. This Arctic air mass settling over much of the Intermountain West here in the Pacific Northwest. And we'll take a look at the extended forecast because it looks like we're going to have a pattern change and bring some storms in off the Pacific and switch things up, warm us back up, bring some precipitation, and perhaps some stormy weather. We'll look at those details as we go. It's always fun looking at the GOES 18 satellite imagery. You can see Southwest BC here, Vancouver, there's Seattle, Portland. You can see Yakima, Tri-Cities, and Spokane and Boise out there as well. Always some amazing details you can look at up close here on the GOES 18 satellite imagery. And when we get these systems bringing this cold air down with the north flow, we get this interesting setup that can occur across some of the Puget Sound here. So I took this one overlooking the Puget Sound and check that out. Those are Puget Sound effect clouds there. That's that cold Arctic air moving across the Puget Sound there and kind of picking up some of that moisture and developing those clouds. You can see this layer isn't that thick here, but it's something. It's kind of an interesting feature here that I like to look for, and I'm kind of waiting to see if this will occur over the next couple of days or so. But yeah, interesting stuff there. Anyway, we'll go back into the forecast here. Let me click back on the map. And you can see we got freeze watches going on across some of western Washington. We got frost advisories all over the place here as well. Definitely going to be cold as we go on in through this weekend. And eastern Washington, east of the Cascades, a higher terrain of Idaho and Montana as well. Some very chilly temperatures. A hard freeze is incoming here, folks. And this is looking at the NAM 3KM. We're looking at composite reflectivity, and you can see some of this precipitation here spinning off to the east. But you can see some residual banding here across some of southeast Washington and Idaho as we go on in through tonight. So you can pick up a few more inches across some of the Bitterroots, the center portion of Idaho, and on in through western Montana as we go all the way in through Friday night, finally sag south across some of Idaho and Wyoming, then kicks out of the area there. And we're going to remain very cool and cold here, especially in the overnight lows. But the daytime could be kind of nice for some areas. Some nice glorious sunshine as we look to clear out here as well. And yeah, it's always a nice thing to have those cool, crisp days with a lot of sunshine out there. We might get a couple of those coming up. And we're looking at apparent temperature here. So this takes wind chill into account. And as we go on in through the day today, you can see the warm up here for western Washington, Oregon, with some sun peeking out. It might be kind of a nice day out there. And as we go in the overnight hours, though, look at the temperatures really cool off. And you can see some of the teens showing up here. And some areas even below zero when you take the wind chill into account here across the higher terrain of Montana, northern Cascades, British Columbia here as well. And I put this into motion, and we go on into Friday night and Saturday morning, and you can see again the very cold temperatures sagging all the way across the Intermountain West, including the Pacific Northwest, as this Arctic air mass takes up residence, and that's going to last probably on in through the weekend towards Monday. Now, taking a look at the wind coming up here, I wanted to show you this. There's going to be a little bit additional surge of Arctic air as we go on in through late tonight and on in through tomorrow morning. You can kind of see that increase there in the Fraser River outflow, some north and northeast winds, the Okanagan River Gap there, spilling some air down across eastern Washington. And you can see it coming down the Puget Sound here, down through Willamette Valley and off the coastline here as well. Pretty much a dry intrusion. Maybe kick off a couple of showers at that, but you can see that sag all the way south across Pacific Northwest there. So another little reinforcing shot of chilly air as we go through the weekend. This is total snow, Kuchera ratio in inches, and this is the HER. Actually, let's check out the NAM 3KM here because it had that interesting band of precipitation over there, and we're going to go ahead and bounce out a little bit here so we can take into account Idaho and Montana as well. So we scroll through the day today. You can see some of that additional snowfall, maybe across some of the Blue Mountains, the higher terrain of southeast Washington as well, and on in through Idaho and Montana. So don't rule that out there, and across eastern BC. But you can also see it does still continue with some of the shower activity through this afternoon across the higher terrain of the Cascades as well. So if you get a new coating of snowfall, that's the reason why we're continuing to bring some of that Arctic air down here across the region. It might spawn a few showers. Now, taking a look at the European on the left versus the GFS on the right, you can see Japan here to the far left of that map. There's Alaska, the Hawaiian Islands, and there's Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia here. So if we put that into motion, you can see the ridge out here over the Pacific allowed that north wind to drive down and this troughing to carve out over the Pacific Northwest and much of the West Coast here, bringing that Arctic air. and then that secondary little shot of Arctic air there. And then we start to change things up a bit. Another ridge moves through here, but look at the jet stream across Pacific really get going here and start to move its way across the ocean here and start to point at the Pacific Northwest. You can see the European is quicker than the GFS with the strongest portion of the jet stream here as we go out towards the 10-day period shown there. But the GFS also getting on board with increasing the storm activity here across the northeastern Pacific Ocean shown there. Now, what I want to show you here is the European. This is mean sea level pressure plus low pressure locations here. So again, we're looking at Japan over here. There's Hawaii, there's Alaska, there's BC, and there's Washington. So if we put this into motion, you can see that huge dome of high pressure there. They're spawning that Arctic air across much of the west. And it finally moves down and out of our area. Then you can see the storm track get rolling again here, folks, as we go on into the extended forecast. And you can see all these ensemble members are showing where they think the low pressure is going to be. So we kind of come into some agreement that the Gulf of Alaska troughing is going to get rolling here, and you can see that really approaches the Pacific Northwest, Southeast Alaska, and British Columbia here as we go on in through the extended forecast here, and we're looking at about 10 days out at this point. So yeah, interesting stuff there. Storm track looks to return as we go through early November. This would be November 4th while the storms are rolling in. This is the GFS, last night's run here, and you can again see that cold Arctic air here in the little secondary shot. Ridge hangs out for a bit. We're going to be cool and chilly here in the meantime as we go through the weekend, and then things start to break down. You can see that ridge start to get out of here in the Gulf of Alaska troughing. GFS wants to bring a system here as we go through November 2nd or 3rd, and then check this out. The GFS gets kind of interesting here as you can see another system dive into the west coast here and another chilly air mass moving down out of the northwest. We'll watch this over the next few days to see if there's anything to that. Purely fantasy at this point, but kind of an interesting signal there for some more chilly air down into the region through the early portion of November here. And if we look at the GFS, what it would mean, now we're going to look at 6-hour precipitation, and this is sea level pressure. So you can see we're going to dry out. Arctic air mass sags across the region here. We get a few nice days, chilly overnight lows, as we mentioned, and then the storm systems start to return as we go through November 2nd or 3rd. Gulf of Alaska troughing gets going here. System goes into the west coast, and then again, some chilly air here kind of mixing actually with the Pacific storm. Still kind of early in the year, but check it out. Some mountain snows maybe off in fantasy land on the GFS there. Again, just something for us to watch at this point. Nothing to get worried about just yet. Now, taking a look at Seattle, you can see the overnight lows. Look at this, well below average for this time of year, and some freezing temperatures are possible even in the Seattle metro here. Then the warm back up here as we go through November 2nd or so, and maybe some above average temperatures here with the storm train returning. Spokane, we're going to get a similar picture here. You can see several days below freezing as we go through this midweek period coming up. Portland, something similar there as well. Bend, you guys getting the picture here. We're going to remain below average as we go on to the early portion of next week. Lewiston, Idaho, something similar there with some overnight lows below freezing. Boise, similar picture. Now, this is looking at 2-meter temperature anomaly in the European. This is last night's run. If we put this into motion, you can clearly see this massive Arctic air mass here across Montana. It's engulfed much of the west here, and this just kind of hangs on as we go. And this would be Sunday morning, still below normal temperatures across much of the west, including western Washington, some at Vancouver Island here as well. But you can kind of see the pattern change starting to roll in here by the time we go towards Monday and Tuesday coming up as we maybe start to bring some systems back in here and start to warm things up. Now, looking off into the extended fantasy windstorm hunt here, as we go on in through November 3rd and 4th, you can see some gusty winds start to return with the potential of that storm track here in Seattle-Tacoma. And this is last night's European run. These are all 50 ensemble members showing their peak wind gusts in there. The control line actually has 42 miles per hour there as well, sometime around November 4th. But you can really see it here at Quileute Airport up towards the northwest tip of Washington State. You can see the potential for stormy conditions arriving again here as we go through early November after a period of some calm weather. Look at this, not much wind at all to speak of as we go through the weekend on in through Monday and possibly Tuesday before a big pattern change would occur. And 6 to 10 day temperature probability outlook. I may have showed this one last night, but you can see the likely warm up and precipitation increases here as we go through the early portion of November. 8 to 14, something similar there. And the experimental forecast here also has some slight precipitation for slight chance for a risk of heavy precipitation here along the west coast with the return of those storms. So anyway, yeah, I hope you guys are liking these videos. We're going to just watch for this pattern change day by day here. There's going to be some fantasy forecasting here coming up here with the windstorms and as far as how much precipitation we can expect with those. But we'll try to get some model agreement over the next few days and see how that goes. But anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day. Enjoy that nice bright sunshine if you can get it here over the next few days as well. And watch out for those overnight lows. And yeah, and hope you guys are doing well. Otherwise, the channel's doing good. All my members, I can't do this without you, and just the people that come back to watch this channel daily. You guys make it all worth my while. And leave some comments below, and I'll talk to you guys again tomorrow.